partner with the Copilot or the Chat GPT and don't fight it.
Welcome to the /podcast, where we lean into the future of IT by inviting fellow thought leaders, innovators, and problem solvers to slash through its complexity. I am your host, James Carman, and today we're talking to David Arenas. Welcome to the /.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. David Arenas is a senior technology leader with 16 years of experience across industrial automation and fintech. He specializes in building scalable data and platform architectures that power global products and meaningful business outcomes. Starting his career as a software developer, David grew into roles leading custom intelligence and enterprise data engineering, supporting platforms used in more than 18 markets. Known for his systems thinking and people-centered leadership, he partners across the organization to deliver trusted data, reusable platform components, and sustainable engineering velocity. Outside of work, he enjoys bass fishing, long-distance running, strength training, and cooking. Again, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a cool bio, bass fishing. You don't see a lot of that in the tech industry, but I love it. I grew up in the South, so I love hearing that.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. Do you get out often?
Yeah, actually, I tried to. So I actually grew up in Walhalla, South Carolina, a small town in the foothills of the Appalachian. So we're surrounded by rivers and lakes, and I moved over here to Lake Wiley, South Carolina, back in 2012. And so on my way to work, sometimes I take a little detour and go fishing for maybe an hour or so before I start my work day.
You see the lake's got that little mist on it out there. And you're like, no, work and wait a little bit.
Yeah, that's the best for top water. So I like top water baits and getting them, try to catch them.
That's awesome. And you can tell you're actually from most people say it, South Carolina, because of the way you say it, South Carolina. South Carolina. If you say it like that, you know you're from there, right?
Yeah.
All right, great. You've been tell me a little bit about how you got here, your career progression. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so starting senior year of high school, I really didn't know what to do. So I started at a community college, was there for a year. But I always I liked computers. But at the time, I didn't really know what that entailed, as well as on the business side. I knew I liked business stuff, but I didn't feel like I had the extroverted skills. Like, my concept of business back then was like sales guy. So I'm like, I'm definitely not a sales guy. I'm not over here, getting on the dance floor right away. So, I transferred over to Clemson University. And I was first took a stab at the hardware side. Again, I didn't know much about, what I was getting into. So I enrolled into computer engineering. I was like, I don't like all this hardware stuff. So I was just flipping through the catalog, and I saw something that had best of both worlds. It had business, it had computers. It was called Computer Information Systems. I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this. And it was do or die. Definitely I struggled in the 101 classes, but I stuck with it. And I survived, and I graduated in 2008. I moved over here to the Charlotte area. I got a job in a German company that specialized in warehouse management systems. And from then on, like, my foundation was very German engineering. I got sent over to Europe. I went to Austria, I went to Germany a few times, and I was surrounded by really strong talent. And, I just learned more and more. I had more mental capacity than in my college years to actually focus on learning. And I just got thrown into the deep end of building some warehouses. Back in 2009, I focused on a food warehouse. So it fed a bunch of grocery stores in the north. Mm-hmm. So I was flying over to Pennsylvania several times throughout commissioning, and it was tough, but it was really nice. It was very rewarding to see, your actual code doing something in real life. So that was really something that I'm really grateful for, because, now in the fintech, a lot of it is behind some websites or something that you can't really touch, other than as you get closer to maybe like, the point of sales or terminals, and that's physical. but it's not for me. It's not as I'm really more about the business logic. So actually being closer to the merchants or to the consumers or to customers in general. I like being closer to the human element.
Gotcha. Now, do you feel like that? You mentioned being exposed to kind of that German engineering culture. I
Yeah,
mean, very meticulous, very rigorous. Do you feel like that made you a better software engineer, being exposed to because we're a little loosey goosey when it comes to
yeah,
software, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And then, but
absolutely.
you've been exposed to like how engineers really engineer. So that do you feel like that helped you?
Oh, 1000%. I mean, this is where, I definitely started a lot with, the college world with like, I had to take assembly class, I had to take C level, so I had to manage my own memory. So that kind of helps,
Mm,
even though that's quite honestly, it's not as pragmatic with like the business applications, but it's good to kind of know that inner workings. And then yeah, definitely just seeing the systemic way, the organized way. It really helps to get like all your ducks in a row to know where you're going. It's kind of like your toolbox, right? So
hmm
I don't in the physical world I'm a bit more disorganized. More on the computer world I'm very more organized. But like a toolbox, you just throw your wrenches and you have to dig through it to find your 10 millimeter socket. So yeah, a lot of times us developer people, we might be a little bit more, oh, just grab something out of the tools. You're gonna have to dig through some stuff. But the German engineering, they had it all, well organized, slotted. Here's
hmm
the standard, here's the metric, and here's all your wrenches and all your sockets and so forth.
Now, your toolbox may be messy, but what about the tackle box? Is that pretty well in order, or what about you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I have
okay,
my
good.
hard baits in one, I got my forms in another. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You got to keep that stuff straight. Um, you mentioned about kind of that whole idea of getting back to the basics, and that's just such a refreshing take. And I've been talking to people a lot about that lately. But tell me a bit about kind of that, how you feel about that, and your take on that we need to get back to the basics.
Yeah, definitely. That's very important for me. It's like definitely the world's chaotic. In today's world, in the information age, like our phones are right there at our fingertips, and we just got so much information overload, and we see so much going on. Everyone's like in this rat race, but we got to block out that noise and really get back to those basics. And a lot of times, for better or worse, if you have more money then you kind of almost provide a band-aid solution because you can just throw money at the problem,
hmm
right? And that's where like for better or worse, when you have to be a bit more resourceful, you're gonna have to be more thoughtful at times to make it make ends meet. So this is where a lot of times what I see, especially as now I've progressed towards more the enterprise level responsibilities here in the company I currently work for. um, yeah, a lot of times it's like, well, how are you actually using your tools at your rig, at your machine? How are you actually taking notes? Like, are you still using the basic notepad or are you using something a bit more advanced? Like,
hmm
all this type of productivity, like I like to use the getting things done framework. It doesn't have to be perfect, but at least having some sort of sense of organizational stuff is going to help you to free your mind to be more strategically thinking versus, hey, where's that PDF? Where's that slide deck? Where is this and that? And so then I've already wasted like 10 minutes just trying to chase down some basic information to do my job.
You mentioned GTD. That's a nice little aside. So, how do you feel like you do with that? I find myself like it's kind of ebbs and flows with me. I get into it, I'm like hyper focused on it. I'm like, I'm gonna manage my inbox and I do it really well for a few weeks and then I slack off. I mean, but how do you do with it?
Yeah, definitely. I would say this past year because I was going through some house renovations and there's just so much transformation. Just like the world's like that was more predictable for me, was a little bit more blown up. So definitely, I've been less disciplined when it comes to that.
hmm
But I still like have spurts of it. So I
Yeah.
have spurts of it. I know when things are getting a little too haywire. So then I gotta dial it back towards more focus. So yeah, I mean, I have to have self compassion. I don't beat myself up the fact that I've gotten undisciplined with GTD. So yeah, it just kind of comes and goes.
Yeah, I'm the same way, and it's funny because when you do get back into like that habit and that spurt of doing it well, you're like, wow, I'm just getting a whole bunch of stuff done, and then when you fall off, you're like, man, I know I can get more things done if I stick with this, but I keep falling off the wagon, you know. So yeah, it's a struggle for me. I don't know. I've really struggled with it to stay at it and stay disciplined. But yeah,
Yeah, most recently I have as well.
yeah, yeah, it's tough. But it does work. I'll tell you that. I know
Yeah, it does work.
when I'm getting down into it, and I'm disciplined. I'm like, man, wow, I'm getting so many things. You know, I mean, it's what it's called, GTD, right? Getting things done. But I
Yeah,
mean, it really works, and I wish I could be more disciplined. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to aside too far. I just when you mentioned GTD, I'm kind of a nerd about that, so that's good. Um, and we talk about like one of the things I know, like you know, AI is a big elephant in the room, of course, and that whole notion of getting back to the basics. And you know, we talked about like with AI, you gotta like it's another tool in the tool belt, and or another you know, lure in your tackle box, so to speak.
yeah,
And you got to just think about the business problem. What business problem are we trying to solve? And just like always, right? Like how are we going to know whether we're solving it well, and how are we going to measure our effectiveness at doing this solution and all that? You know, you kind of have to go back to that, and that's what everybody's struggling with right now with this whole ROI of AI, right? And
yeah,
but that's that getting back to basics. We've always been doing this, right? I mean,
yeah,
if you're well, you should have been, I
yeah,
guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the should have been, right? And you know, the way I see things, companies that have had like, I'm a engineering kind of first kind of guy, obviously, because you know that's kind of my foundation. But is like if you have been, you know, creating a culture, a standard of excellence, you know, you have values and principles. Even if you just try to follow the agile values and principles and apply it to your SDLC, you know, stuff like that. You don't have to build your own, but another one I like is like inner source, like inner source model, and the inner source commons provides really good resources. I like that they have a mind map of a table of contents and how to apply that. So, yeah, I mean, if you were doing a lot of that already, you're going to be more prepared to actually use that new AI and not scramble to actually create that order and structure to be able to AI give you better answers. So this is where it's like AI is almost like that very smart classmate. You know, they go to them, they have a lot of the answers. But if you're talking to them, like, let's say, you know, nothing wrong with kindergartners, but if a little kid comes and talks to some PhD guy that knows just everything about some sort of domain, you know, you're asking basic questions like, "Hey, how does the yellow crayon taste like?" You know, you're gonna get a very like basic response. But if you're now asking more of like the smarter questions, like, "Hey, what's the molecular structure of the elements that make up the crayon and the yellow, like and what part of that is from the Roy G. Biv? Well, actually, it says it in the acronym. So the light spectrum. So now you're
Hmm.
actually, you know, more so having a smart conversation with it. So you still have to do your homework. And that's
Right.
one of the things. It's like you still have to know what you're trying to get out of it. Otherwise, you're just going to get just basic answers or you're having just basic, you know, it's not going to learn as much if you're not having smart conversations with it.
Yeah. And if anybody's wondering, the yellow crayons, they taste just like the red ones. I have done the homework. You know what I mean?
Okay,
I've
good.
done that hard work. So you don't need to waste your time. They taste the same.
I'll
Yeah.
tell my toddler that
Yeah.
I
Let
have a
them know.
couple kids. All
Yeah.
right,
You
cool.
don't pick a favorite color because, you know, you'll just never have that. You can take a bite off of a few of them at a time, you know? I loved, again, I love all the back to the basics, back to the basics. And you talked about inner source there. Um, Inner source. I'm not familiar, I don't think, with that concept. Maybe let's back up a little bit and talk about what
Yeah.
is that? What is inner source?
So it's following basically the principles of open source,
Okay.
but within your contained walls of your proprietary activities within your organization. So it's bringing that culture of transparency, of openness. And, one of the things I really like is like that, the Apache way, like that particular kind of creed, right? So it's like applying that, but bringing that into your actual walls. So I feel like with such a collaborative, culture in general within your, and I get it, right? I get that there's some things that are going to be a bit more confidential, like, credit cards. You don't want transparency of, hey, here's all the credit cards, go query them.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
you can't let those things rule everything else.
Right.
Like contain the fact that you need, security clearance for this, but don't make it to where you have to apply the same rules to the rest of what you're using. So one of the examples I've used, especially when it comes to governance, risk, and compliance. So a nuclear power station is going to have more security than the breaker box in my house.
Hmm.
It's not very pragmatic for me to have some guys with some M16s or whatever kind of assault rifles people use at protecting nuclear power stations. You
Right.
don't see this with transformers out on the side of the road. But yet sometimes I feel like, we want to bring the kitchen sink of guardrails into more like the R&D phase, for
Hmm.
example.
Well, you're in South Carolina, so maybe there are people with M16s out there.
Yeah,
I'm just
for
kidding.
sure.
uh, I really enjoyed my time in South. I lived in Summerville, South Carolina, for
Okay.
a little bit down near Charleston, and
Yeah, Charleston.
yeah,
You said it
it
right.
was nice. Yeah, see, there's you got to say it right when you live there. It's South Carolina and Charleston, so you got to learn the language. Now here in Kentucky, we have one. If you're not from Kentucky, we can tell immediately if you say, Louisville, Kentucky. If you say
Mm,
Louisville, we're like, okay, you're not from Kentucky, because people that are from here, we say Louisville. It's all just kind of blends together, It's the same thing with like South Carolina, Carolina.
yeah.
You don't say Care Road Line. No. Anyway, you mentioned nobody wants to do the hard work. Nobody wants to do the homework to get to the level where they need to be. So, and we coined what do we call it? The Kardashian effect, where
Mm,
you're just famous because, right, for being
yeah.
famous. Um, People don't want to put in the hard work, because I'm sure the Kardashians did the hard work to get to where they
Oh,
are.
yeah,
I'm not trying
absolutely.
to belittle that, but like people think that like, oh, I can just turn on a camera and now I'm, Kim Kardashian. I'm going to make billions of dollars. It's the same thing kind of now with AI. I love the idea that it's democratizing. So people, software engineering itself is more approachable. People can express themselves, but it kind of makes people feel like they don't have to kind of put in that hard work, right? Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm saying that it's being seen as like that silver bullet,
Mm-hmm.
or hey, I can generate a prototype in just a matter of a few minutes, and yeah, sure, like it can work, it's on localhost, you see it, but hey, it takes more energy to actually get it production ready, to actually get it to scale. Like, do you understand DevSecOps? Like, do you understand the software development lifecycle? Hey, like maybe I need to plan stuff. Maybe I need to create some user stories. Hey, let me generate that with Markdown using my GitHub Copilot. But then actually then feeding it in, hey, am I going to use the Gherkin syntax for these stories? And, what about my QA? Like, am I going to have, using the testing pyramid? Well, yeah, well, I would have had to actually learn about the testing pyramid to be able to actually guide that Copilot towards actually making this production ready. So, like, you still have to understand those concepts. You still have to actually be able to turn that into something that the AI understands for you to actually build a solution that's actually going to be able to withstand what's happening in the real world. So, okay, cool that you generated this with just natural language within a few minutes. All right, now go sell that. Let's see if that's going to work. And,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get exploited. There's always bad guys. The bad guys have bigger tools now.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually at at my alma mater, Clemson University, at a computing showcase, and there's some brilliant minds coming out of the new workforce. And one of the gentlemen there was talking about quantum computing and the concern that that can do for actually exploiting systems now with AI. So the bad guys are also getting more smarter and having bigger guns to be able to attack systems. So, it's a huge jungle out there when it comes to AI.
You're from Clemson.
Yes, sir.
Are you a Miles Murphy fan?
Miles Murphy.
Defensive end. I think he was Clemson.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
a Bengals player
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, we like him up
Oh yeah,
here.
I try to follow this Clemson guys once they make it to the NFL.
Heck yeah. He lives like 6, 7 doors down the street from me.
Oh,
Miles Murphy
nice.
does. He's a really good guy, really nice guy.
Awesome.
All right. And so, okay. So yeah, that whole idea of, skipping over the things. It's interesting because you brought up earlier about, assembler. And this is something I struggle with. Am I being like, get off my lawn, cause I had to do assembler and learn all that stuff and understand how the computer works and all that. And I was actually surprised to hear you say when you graduated in 2008 that they made you do assembler that late in the game. I thought they stopped teaching that stuff. I'm glad they're not, right? I'm glad that not because I want people to go through the, just
The
awful,
hell.
awful thing that,
Yeah.
that is having to think about registers and
Yeah,
yeah, like
exactly.
that sort of stuff. But I do think it helps you understand kind of, it was assembler language and like computer architecture, I think is the
Yeah,
class
something
I
like that.
took. Yeah. So it helped you understand how the actual computer does things. Um, it, it, I worry about it and I wonder like, okay, so, do I need assembler to do my job today? No, but it was helpful for me to understand computers. And is that going to be the same thing with AI? Like at this point, we believe, and it is very true that you need to have those fundamentals and all that. Is it going to get to a point where really you don't need to know about the testing pyramid and all those concepts that we know and we hold, that are near and dear to our hearts, and we know if we violate them, we're in trouble. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that we'll evolve away from that, but I don't know. Am I just clinging to the past or what?
No, I think the way I see it, especially when it comes to academia, it's like mental exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, doing Navy SEAL training, but academically.
Mm.
Like, this is where I think it's great. I think quite honestly, now it's easier for anybody to really learn like a lot of these concepts and not, you skip the high bills of college and learn. But then this is where it's like, how well do you know your learning style and how well can you actually use those tools? Like, now we have our phones, we can search for anything. Use Udemy, use Coursera, use YouTube, use a lot of this stuff that a lot of it is free. So yes, you don't need to go to college to be able to have that mental training. But if you still go there, you need to be able to do that mental training to just get stronger and stronger, and it builds that grit that you will need then once you're actually working for a company that's going to put you, you know, throw you in the deep end like I got thrown in. Which the fact that I had that, just pressure from academia, not knowing a lot of this stuff, it's just like I slacked off a little bit in high school and I just wanted to take it a little easier. So instead of enrolling into calculus, I just did something else. But it's just like, hey, now in hindsight, I should have done the pain in high school and of
Mhm.
calculus versus having to repeat and take calculus in my academic, like in my college level. So, you live and learn, but definitely I think that you still have to do that homework. You still have to go through that mental training to be able to actually use AI to generate value more efficiently and effectively and just use it in the way that you want it to be used.
Man, you're so right about like do those hard things and the painful things when you're young. I'm going
Yeah.
through, you said Coursera. I'm going through like the machine learning specialization on Coursera, and my goodness, trying to get back into that math. I mean, I was a
Yeah.
math major in college. I was a math and
Oh,
computer science,
nice.
and trying to get back into it though, man, 50 years old and the brain don't work like it used to, man. I'll tell you that
Yeah.
much.
And the math part is funny because one of the classes that what tripped me up was discrete mathematics.
Hmm.
But now, even though, I probably couldn't really do proofs really well right now, but I still something ingrained in my head to where I use mathematical associations to actually say, well, if we do it this way and this way, there's therefore like I try to even make my arguments of why I want to do something a certain way. There's some of that mathematical stuff that I was practicing. Again, I wouldn't have had that if I didn't go through that academia discipline. But the
Hmm.
fact that I went through that pain, something ingrained in my head to where I almost apply it without even realizing it.
Yeah, I've heard people say before, like mathematics is really, it's not necessarily all about, the algorithms and, L'Hopital's rule and, all of the stuff we learn in
Yeah,
calculus. It's about, it teaches you how to learn is what
yeah,
math really is the takeaway that you take with you for the rest of your life, like you're saying, and how to think critically about things. It's not about remembering all the cross multiplication, all that junk. It's about, building those habits, I think is the bigger part.
yeah. And I was listening to something about MCP servers earlier this morning, and there's tools within an MCP server, and I was over here like, well, those are really just methods slash functions for programming. So
Hmm.
it's just now we have actually found a language to describe what in computer science we call methods or functions
Hmm.
into something that the business people understand a bit more. It's a tool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, that's what a method does in your computer program. It's a tool to do something if you're, following good practices like, object-oriented programming stuff like loose coupling, high encapsulation, tight encapsulation, high cohesion. So it's like if you're doing that, like you're creating good tools within your MCP server.
That's a good way to think about that because that is how a business person would think. Oh, I've got a tool that can do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, we don't think of it that way typically. It's a refreshing way to think about it. Um, I know in your bio you talked about building sustainable engineering velocity and people centered leadership, and in our prep call you talk about one of the books that I really love, team topologies, and you mentioned that you're kind of applying some of those concepts from that book in your organization. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? A lot of times we rush to skipping the organizational part of organizing people around a goal, like and the why behind what we're doing. We're adults here. We're a lot of us, um, we're got higher education. So this is where it's just like sometimes I feel like we fall into a trap of almost treating the workforce, especially in a large scale, as almost like assembly line workers, right? But this is knowledge work, and here's where it's important to organize people amongst all this chaos. So one of the things I did in the past is created enablement team. I was inspired by the four teams topology, but what is that? Is a cross-functional group of people that are going to try to unblock things for value stream teams, right? So then you got the value stream teams that are focused around specific, maybe business domains. And this is where for me, it's like, well, it's important to understand domain driven design.
Hmm.
So again, going back to you still need to learn the concepts to have good conversations with the AI. And then additionally, okay, well, or the platform is going to power a lot of what the value stream teams are building. So then you got these guys out in Germany that are the framework developers, the library developers, they are the ones, the big brains with, PhDs a lot of times creating reusable platforms. But, you have to also coordinate with them because they're not perfect. They're going to create bugs and you're going to find them when you're actually on one of the value streams. And then you have the complicated subsystems, right? So then there's this other components that are required for all of it to be in sync and, do the most you can to deliver that value back to your consumer, to your customer. And a lot of that is where, again, going back to the fact, the human centric aspect. These are adults that want to understand, why we're doing a lot of this stuff.
Hmm.
And if we don't actually remind people of our why, our aspirations, it's, uh, people can find a purpose, their own personal purpose as to, why they're actually trying to, do their work. But, it has to tie back to the overall overarching, culture of what an organization is meant to do. And those are the ones that survive, right? Especially when there's such a shift in paradigm as AI is doing. It's just like remember why you exist, why you're doing things.
Hmm.
That customer centric, the know your customer is very important. Otherwise, you're just building a castle to nowhere, and you're doing a lot of stuff, but
Hmm.
yeah, you're gonna lose the mark.
Yeah, in the consulting business, we encounter a bunch of different companies, and one of the things that you're describing something we see all the time because you'll have the big thinkers and the visionaries thinking, here's the direction we want to go, the big ideas kind of folks, right? And then that kind of gets, organizationally, we always think in hierarchies and we want to break everybody into hierarchies. And then, by the time it gets down to kind of that leaves of the tree in the hierarchy there, you don't feel like that why needs to propagate its way down. I need to just say, okay, I know the why way up here, me and my big vision brain. And then I'm going to break that into chunks and I'm going to say, okay, this team's responsible for this chunk of my why, the greater vision. And this team's responsible for this chunk. And then they do that. They break it into chunks and chunks. And by the time you get down to the leaves, the people just believe that, oh, my job is I create buttons
Yeah,
for user screens. And that's my job. That's all I do. So they find no meaning in it, right? It's just tough to be motivated. And the organizations that do it well, that explain that why, that you understand that you're part of something greater. You're not just a widget maker person, right? Like that. Those are the teams that see, higher productivity and all the benefits of that sort of thing.
yeah, absolutely. And I like to find my own purpose, so this is where I like to use the software industry to try to make a positive impact to folks. So this is where I have found my why in terms of yeah, it all will eventually tie back to what the business cares about. Because, focusing on people's growth, focusing on making a positive impact and through their career, but them owning that, eventually it's going to go back to value, right? Hey, I learned about software design patterns that David guy told me about.
Hmm.
And okay, now I understand a bit more about how to write scalable software. Or hey, David was talking about that Uncle Bob guy about clean architecture. So now it's like, okay, well, I go off and run. But it's got to be an attitude, right? You got to want to learn. Yeah, I can't get on that treadmill for you. I can't lift those weights for you. You got to, I'm showing you where they're at. I'm showing you what I did, and you can follow that recipe, or do what you want to do.
Yeah, we love Uncle Bob here at Calibri.
Yeah, Uncle Bob's
He's a
cool. I
hoot.
like him.
Did you watch his videos? We used to. That
Yeah,
was part of our.
I watched his videos. Yeah, I'd watch them several years ago. Just watched them on O'Reilly. There's a whole set of them. But yeah, I've never met him. I'd like to meet him, but yeah, he's a cool guy.
I haven't met him yet either. I think he's up in Chicago area. I'd love to meet him someday. He's a hoot, man. His videos used to crack me up with all the little
Yeah,
costumes and stuff he does, man. He's hilarious.
yeah,
Funny dude.
exactly.
But yeah, I loved all of his, his books. I've been meaning to get around to it. We exchanged some messages on X or Twitter one time, and he was talking about his book that he was writing. That's all of the like leaders and the people throughout history of computing. Going all the way back to like Ada Lovelace and stuff like that, who was
Mhm.
Lord Byron's daughter, which is so weird that that's like one of the earliest people in computing was a poet's daughter, right? But yeah, apparently he's got a book out. I haven't read it yet, but I'm definitely wanting to pick that one up. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Uncle Bob's awesome. You sound like you read a little Simon Sinek too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So one of my mentors, he recommended me start with why,
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard of it. I've watched some YouTube videos here and there of Simon Sinek. But yeah, this is where it almost feels like it's always perfect timing when someone recommends something to me. And so a lot of times what I do, because I'm always on the move, either, I'm driving to work or, just, taking my family somewhere or, just going on a long run. So I like to use audiobooks. So,
Mm-hmm.
I start listening. And then once, if I really like it, I'm like, I need to get that hard copy because, it's got diagrams and drawings and, the physical aspects. So yeah, I recently wrapped that up like a few weeks ago and it's really put things into perspective and, not only from the real like work world, but also just the personal world as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Simon Sinek. His books are awesome. I follow him on X every now and then. I see videos from him and pretty good stuff. He's great. All right. Well, we are moving on to our next section of the show, which we call Ship It or Skip It.
Ship or skip, everybody we gotta tell us if you ship or skip.
What about the idea of, and you don't hear a lot about it anymore, but it does come up, that notion of like, oh, you just need those 10x engineers, and that's the only way you can succeed in this this software engineering world. What's your take on that?
No, you definitely don't need that. You have too many chefs in the kitchen. Like everyone's gonna think that the broth needs this amount of salt, and everyone makes good broth, but it is like you need to break that up. You need to have diversity, and I mentioned earlier I went to this computing showcase at my alma mater, and the new workforce, they're brilliant. Like I'm just over here like, oh my God, if I had this person, like if I had that person, it's like the possibilities are endless. But then now it's more on me, like how good am I in mentoring these folks? How good am I guiding them? Like it's like the grasshopper, it's like these young grasshoppers, I can do this and that. So no, I think I could accomplish a lot with that new generation of workforce, even though AI a lot of times has disrupted. And, I keep hearing and seeing things that, the job market is really tough right now. And a lot of times it's especially tough for those new graduates. If anything, those new graduates, I see a lot of potential there because they're the ones that are knowing the paradigm of, using the co-pilots, the chat GPTs, which, I've talked to some folks in academia and they hate it. They hate it because it has disrupted
Oh yeah,
academia as well.
sure.
But, reframe that and be like, no, Copilot is a great teacher now. It's an advanced teacher. It's an actual personal teacher. So this can actually tutor me. So it's like partner with the Copilot or the Chat GPT and don't fight it. Like instead, learn how to partner with it. And this workforce here, the new generation, they're going to know how to use all these tools. They're going to be able to navigate that fast. And it's more like they're almost like a physical agent, if you will, now, because you can talk to them and then they can talk to the next, virtual agent. So I think, no, you don't need all these Derek Jeters or anyone that's, just Lionel Messi. You don't need that. You just need the attitude. You need to find those people that are hungry, that have the right attitude to be able to then listen to your advices and actually execute on them.
Yeah, I think we grew up in a industry where those 10x engineers, we probably did need a degree of that because we weren't really organizationally supporting our employees where they could bring them their whole selves to work, right? And to be, everything that they can be. Just to say, I mean, it sounds kind of trite, but I mean, we weren't really supporting our employees like we know we can now. So I think it is a different world. Like you said, I don't need Derek Jeter. I don't need home runs every time somebody gets up to the plate. I need Moneyball, right? I just need you to get on base. I need to get on base. Everybody get on base. We'll be fine. I think that's definitely true. You mentioned kind of higher ed. What's your take on now, especially mentioning like GPT and those sort of things? Is college dead with generative AI? Is it no longer around, or is there a place for college still?
There definitely is a place for college, I think. But this is where I I went to that computing showcase and there's amazing things happening. It's exciting and it's happening because of that institution. So, but the institution needs to evolve with it, just like companies, Fortune 500 companies need to evolve. So, definitely, it's a place for people. You still need the people. Like I love working remotely, but also there is value in being able to bring people together and physically, discuss things, making it fun. Otherwise we'll end up like that movie with that little robot
Wally.
Wally.
That's
Yeah,
what most people mention. Wally. Yeah.
yeah. So no, definitely. You need those brains. You need those people that are excited about AI to come to that institution that provides that environment. You need that college football, you need all
Hmm.
these, things to be able to enjoy the physical world and not let AI or whatnot just turn us into, like that Wall-E movie.
Yeah, that's a good thing you bring up. Like, I think you can learn a lot using, kind of as you said before, using like ChatGPT or one of those assistants as kind of a tutor and helping you learn those things. But man, all of that, the college experience of getting those minds together, we kind of feed off of each other, whether we know it or not. And maybe there's some sort of like pheromones or I don't know, but
Yeah.
like you get people together, and that's where innovation happens. It's hard to do that kind of innovation thing from behind a Zoom screen, every week. You do need to get people together, and I do think that leads to better outcomes, especially when it comes to like innovative work and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, like I was fortunate to start in industrial automation where I was surrounded by actual physical machines, robots, conveyor systems, and this is where it's just like those physical like stimulations like create some little ticks in your brain that then
Mm.
tie back to whatever logic you were writing. I was going through some stuff a few weeks ago, cleaning out a shed, and I found some of my old notes from when I was a junior developer, some pseudocode, and it just flooded a bunch of memories related to that teaching station that I was integrating with.
Mm-hmm. It's one thing I tell people. When we onboard people, one of the bits of advice I give people for imposter syndrome is to journal and write down things. And you don't need to necessarily even find those journals years later in a shed somewhere. Go back 6 months and look at like what you wrote down, what you were thinking through, how you were thinking about a problem, and you'll look at that and you're like, oh my goodness, oh, I know how to solve that now. They like that really helps with that imposter syndrome thing. So that's a freebie one for you. Journal. Just write it down. The daily problems you're working on in your day to day work, and revisit it every now and then. That'll cure that imposter syndrome for you.
Yeah,
You are growing. You
absolutely.
just don't know it.
Exactly.
Okay. So, AI is everywhere, of course. What do you think about AI? For the enterprise now. Are we ready for this? You got this whole notion of like A2A and MCP servers and all of this stuff going on. Is it ready? Is it really at the point where enterprises can really, just dive in now?
I definitely ship it. So this is where it goes back to culture, the
Hmm.
culture of the enterprise. Some enterprises are going to be more ready than others. And it's not a blanket statement either in terms of an enterprise, right? Especially one that maybe grew through mergers and acquisitions. There's going to be pockets of parts of a enterprise that are going to be absolutely ready. But what I mentioned earlier is like, don't let maybe the bigger system or whatever person in the room, or not person, but more so organization,
Hmm.
like don't let that be the measuring stick for some maybe smaller organization. Like you hear stories of like, Telegram has a small set of developers or Pandora had a small population of developers. That almost sounds impossible to, some worlds are like, no, that's just, we do way more complicated things. Or maybe we do, but this is where it's more of like, hey, like it's back to the culture. Like what's the culture within that team or
Hmm.
sub organization within a larger organization? And then some are going to be more ready than others.
Hopefully, we've learned our lesson by going through the microservices era about the what would Netflix do stuff, right? Like everybody was like, okay, well, we're going to do microservices and we have to do it exactly like Netflix did. I'm like, really? Really? Do you? Are you streaming to millions of people simultaneously all over the world all day long? Is that what you're doing? No, you don't need to do what Netflix does. Like, hopefully we learned that lesson. Like, we don't all have to be OpenAI or Google or who, you know what I mean? These big hyperscalers with what we do with AI. We can, leverage AI. We don't have to build a huge data center down to the bottom of the ocean in order to do it
Yeah,
either.
exactly.
Hopefully we've learned our lesson and we can take a more reasonable approach to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where like the discipline comes in, right? It's just like just be uh don't be rigid, but
Mm-hmm.
be disciplined. And so that's where sometimes people might think, oh well, this person might be a little too rigid. No, they're just disciplined and really follow what they actually do their homework in. but they're able to adapt. So that's important to distinguish.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. All right. Moving right along. Now we're going into our final segment of the show. This is what we call our lightning round.
It's time for the lightning round. Rapid fire, don't slow down. Answer quick and make it count. In this game, there's no way out. It's time for the lightning round.
These are the highly important questions that everybody wants to understand, and we do have a scoring system for this. So there's a whole process. We submit all your answers off, and it takes a few weeks to tabulate everything, and we'll get back with you on your score. We don't know live in the moment. It's impossible to judge that. But we'll get back to you on your score. But I just want to make sure that you understand the depth of this and the importance of this segment. This is the Super Bowl here, right?
All right.
Are you mentally prepared?
I'm prepared.
Okay. What's your favorite city in the United States besides the one you live in?
Yeah, it's a good one because the funny thing is I don't travel too much in the States, although I have traveled the world quite a bit. And I'm a more of a small. I like the Asheville. I like that natural,
Okay. Yeah.
mountainous area. So
Okay.
Asheville's a good one.
Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah.
Asheville, North Carolina.
How are they doing nowadays after all that hurricanes? How they get themselves all squared away?
They're coming along. I actually visited with my family a few months ago. I think it was July or so, but definitely you see a lot of the scars that happen. But I mean, they're resilient folks, so they're rebuilding and rebuilding fast. And we enjoyed the area. We went to some sort of wildlife center, and it was really neat. So
Yeah,
they're making do with what they got.
they are resilient folks. All right. Are you a sourdough or a wheat kind of guy?
Sourdough, definitely. My wife got into it, and she's been doing an outstanding job. And through the renovations, we haven't done that for quite some time, but just excited for her to make them again. And I like to put avocado on it and whatnot, so it's great. I love sourdough.
My daughter got into sourdough, and she's trying to get my wife into it. So I'm sure I'm going to be up to my eyeballs in sourdough here soon. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that's good.
But I do like it, so that's good. I'm happy. I'm very happy for it. Bring on the sourdough is what I say. All right. How many times do you think you've sneezed in the last 7 days?
Probably around 5 times. I have had a sore throat here and there, but I haven't sneezed too much.
Okay. Do you believe in love at first sight?
No, I think that's just a bit too much Disney movie type of. It's not very pragmatic.
Okay. What is your favorite type of muffin?
I like the banana muffins with some like little nuts in them.
Oh yeah, the banana nut. Oh yeah, that's a classic. Yeah. Timeless classic. What is the type of triangle with two equal sides called?
I can't recall. It was like 10th grade or something. Obtuse. I remember that word obtuse. But
I think that's the wide angle, wider than 90 angle, right?
Something like that.
I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think there is a name for it. I'm just kidding. Did you go to sleepaway summer camp as a kid?
No, I didn't do any of that.
I didn't either. We didn't have enough money for that stuff.
Likewise.
They may just say, when I say, hey, Dad, I'm going to sleep over at, my friend's house, he'd be like, okay, see you next week. You know what I mean? Like that. That's about the extent of my, summer camp. How long would you say you could hold your breath?
Well, not too long. Unfortunately, I haven't really achieved being able to swim on my own. So I could probably hold my breath maybe 20 seconds.
20 seconds? Okay. What temperature do you like to keep your thermostat at?
Usually anywhere, 68 usually. Depends, of course. If it's winter time, I definitely like more of a 68, 69. I like it a little warmer when it's hot out. So I'll still try to keep it not too cold. I like it at like 71 or so when it's summertime.
Seems pragmatic. I like it. Which animal do you feel adds more joy to the world, squirrels or llamas?
Definitely llamas.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't really met a lot of llamas. Seen a lot of squirrels, but I don't run into llamas very often. You see them though. You do
Yeah, you
run
see
into them.
them when I cut through some back roads when I'm heading to like back home in Walhalla, and yeah, I see some in some farms they have them.
Yeah. There's one near here that they have like alpacas and llamas and all kinds of different stuff. So that's kind of fun. Okay, one final question. Is double dipping at a party ever acceptable?
No, I don't think so.
I feel like that's a solid
But I
answer.
did grow up Catholic, and we all drank from the same cup, so
I
that's
wonder,
almost like double dipping.
do they still do that like post COVID? Is that a thing? Like I've been to a mass, like I didn't grow up Catholic, but this is a highly Catholic area. The Cincinnati's got Catholic.
Nah.
It's do they still do that?
I think in some places they do, but I went a few days ago, and I don't think I saw it. I also was kind of zoned out too.
Our church does the little plastic cup thing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
With the little grape juice in it. But yeah. But at least in the Catholic Church, they were at least nice enough to take the little cloth and wipe
Oh
around. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
The priest would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll kill all the germs, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We are wrapping up here. Any takeaways? Like any sort of like advice or takeaways that you would want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think so. Also, I'm a father of two boys, and parenting has been very eye-opening for me. And my wife's passionate about parenting, and of course, it's come towards me, and it's just I did some parenting classes, parent coaching stuff a year or so ago, and my wife, she has a website, and also she's working on getting an app out it's called givinggraceparenting.com. Check it out. It really, I think parenting is a very eye-opening just journey, and really with like the peaceful parenting aspects, it's very reflective towards your own self, and it's more about doing work as a parent to show up better for your child. So that's what I really like about the peaceful parenting method is it actually makes you just a better person to learn from your experiences as a child and apply it to being the best version of yourself for your child. It's not about fixing the child. It's more about fixing your own whatever things that you have to work on for yourself. So yeah, I think even if you're not a parent, just learning about those concepts also makes you a better leader. Because a lot of
Absolutely.
times at the end of the day, the way we behave in our workforce is a reflective of our experiences, even down to childhood. Even my career, more so, my foundation is through the logistics, through the supply chain. I look at things like it's just one big warehouse. So it set the foundation for how I actually approach problems. Same with, as children, whatever we experience, it impacts what we do as adults in our situation. So yeah, I have a bit of a passion towards, trying to grow as a parent so I can, create good human beings that will give back to the world once they're more capable of as adults.
I like that. And then you said that was givinggraceparenting.com. Is that right?
Yes.
That's great. I love that. Grace. As a parent, we do struggle with, you think your kids just have to be perfect all the time. You just tell them, something and they're going to do it, but it's their job to mess up. That's how they're learning, right?
Oh yeah, that's
have to.
playtime. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I hope we have many more conversations like this together. I really enjoyed it. And, you're welcome back anytime on the show. Come back and see us again. And really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, this was fun. And it was my first podcast. So thanks for having me.
Well, I don't think if you go on other podcasts, they're probably not going to be as goofy as us. You know what I mean? We have a lot of levity.
Oh, this was fun.
Yeah.
This was good.
We like to have a good time. So, again, thank you again. Welcome back, or you're welcome back anytime. If you'd like to get in touch with us here at the /, drop us a line at the / at Caliberty.com. See you next time. The / podcast is created by Caliberty. The / team is director and producer Ryan Wilson, editing by Steve Baradelli, marketing support by Taylor Blessing, and I'm your host, James Carman. Thanks for listening.